small-town man once paid $47 for a strip of land everyone in the room laughed at. 50 years later, a billion-dollar project couldn't move 1 inch without him. So the question is, what did he know that nobody else bothered to check? The call came at 7:42 on a Monday morning, and the lawyer on the other end was already shouting, "The whole project is frozen. 40 acres of permits, and it all stops at one strip of land. Who owns it? Find out who owns it." Now, his name was Dennis Royce, and he did not yet know the answer would ruin him. Half a mile away, Walter Hargrove sat at his kitchen table with a cup of black coffee and a folded receipt he had kept for 50 years. He did not know about the phone call. He did not need to. He had been waiting for it longer than the man making it had been alive. To understand the morning, you have to go back to the afternoon it started. It was a county tax auction in the spring of 1971, the kind held in a back room with a folding table and a coffee pot that had been burning the same pot since noon. 4 locals stood around in work boots. A man in a clean gray suit leaned against the wall, checking his watch. That man was Howard Royce, Dennis Royce's father. The clerk read the lots out fast. Most were small. Back taxes owed, land seized, sold cheap to whoever showed up. Walter showed up. He was 31 then, quiet with dirt under his nails and a notebook in his coat pocket. Lot 14 came up near the end, a strip of land along an old road easement, 12 feet wide, half a mile long, worthless on its face. The clerk almost laughed reading it. 12-foot strip, North County. Opening bid, $47. Howard Royce snorted from the wall. $47 for a ditch. Somebody buy the man his ditch. The locals chuckled. Walter raised one finger. $47, the clerk said, going once. Howard Royce shook his head and looked at his watch again. He had come for the 40 acres 2 lots down. He got them. He paid $1,100 and felt like a king. He did not bid on the ditch. Why would he? Sold, the clerk said. $47. Lot 14 to Mr. Hargrove. Walter walked up to the table. He signed his name slow and clean. The clerk slid him a receipt. Walter folded it once, then again, and put it in his coat pocket next to the notebook. Howard Royce was still talking to one of the locals. He glanced at Walter the way a man glances at a fence post. "What's a fellow want with 12 feet of nothing?" Royce said, not really asking. Just enjoying his own voice. Walter did not answer. He buttoned his coat. Some men buy land. Walter bought a key. He drove home in a truck that rattled at every stop sign. His wife, Eleanor, was on the porch shelling peas into a bowl. She watched him climb out with that small smile on his face she knew meant something. "Well," she said. "Got it," Walter said. "How much?" $47. Eleanor nodded, slow. She did not ask why. She had married a patient man, and she had learned that patient men have reasons that take years to show. That night, Walter spread a county map across the kitchen table. He set his coffee down on the corner so it would not curl up. With a pencil, he traced a thin line, the 12-foot strip, running straight across the north end of the county like a thread through cloth. He looked at it for a long time. Then he tapped one spot where his strip crossed something else on the map, something printed in faded ink, something nobody at that auction had read, because nobody at that auction had bothered to pull the old county records the way Walter had, 3 weeks before the sale. He did not say what it was, not even to Eleanor. He just folded the map along its old creases, set it on top of the receipt in his coat pocket, and finished his coffee. The strip sat for years after that. Grass grew over it. The old road beside it cracked and faded. The county forgot it. Howard Royce built houses on his 40 acres, sold them, made his money, and moved up in the world. His son Dennis grew up, took over, and dreamed bigger than his father ever had. And the whole time, every spring, a small tax bill came in the mail with Walter's name on it. A few dollars. He paid it the day it arrived, every single year. Eleanor asked him once, maybe 10 years in, why he kept paying on a strip of weeds. "Because someday," Walter said, "somebody's going to need it. Need a ditch, need what's under it." She did not ask what was under it. She trusted that he knew. Walter knew the land would matter long before anyone else did. He knew because he had read the one piece of paper that Howard Royce was too proud to read, and that Dennis Royce did not even know existed. He folded that knowledge up small and carried it for 50 years. He never bragged. He never sold. He mowed the strip twice a year and kept the markers clear and waited. He waited for a morning exactly like this one, when a panicked lawyer would start shouting into a phone at 7:42, and the answer to every question that man asked would be sitting at a kitchen table, drinking black coffee, holding a folded receipt soft as cloth from 50 years in a coat pocket. Walter set the cup down. He already knew what they would offer. He already knew what he would say. He just did not know it would take them this long. Before this goes any further, do yourself a favor and hit subscribe, because the moment Walter walks into that library, you're going to see exactly what one quiet man noticed that a whole boardroom missed. October 1968, 3 years before the auction. A reading room with green lamps and a clerk who had not spoken above a whisper in 20 years. Walter Hargrove sat at a long table with 4 county map books open in front of him. He was not supposed to know anything yet. He was just curious. He had heard talk at the feed store. Talk about growth coming north someday. Roads, maybe. Houses. Walter did not gamble on talk. He checked it. So he drove to the county building and asked for the oldest records they had. The clerk pointed him to the back. Nobody went to the back. Walter went to the back. He read for 3 Saturdays straight. Old plat maps, road petitions, tax rolls so old the ink had turned brown. Most of it was nothing. A drainage fight from 1922. A fence dispute settled with a handshake. Then he found the corridor. It was a road plan from 1931. The county had laid out a route for a future highway, a wide one, meant to run north someday when the money came. They had drawn it, filed it, and recorded an easement for it. A legal right-of-way locked into the books. The money never came. The Depression killed it. The plan was shelved, but shelved is not the same as canceled. Walter read it 3 times. The corridor was never legally dissolved. No resolution closing it. No vote. The county had simply stopped talking about it. On paper, the right-of-way was still alive. And the only spot where a new northern highway could legally connect to that old protected corridor, the only gap the law left open, ran straight through a 12-foot strip of land along an abandoned easement. Walter sat very still. He copied the file numbers into his notebook in small, careful print. He did not tell the clerk what he had found. He thanked her and drove home. He spent the next 3 years learning everything about that strip. Who owned it? What taxes were owed? When it might come up for sale? When the back taxes finally pushed it to auction in 1971, Walter was ready, and $47 was all it cost to own the one piece the law could not go around. At the kitchen table that night, with the kettle ticking on the stove, Eleanor watched him draw his own version of the county map by hand. A clean sheet, a pencil line for the old corridor, a heavier line for a strip where the two met. "That little thing," she said, nodding at the strip. "Why is it drawn darker than the rest?" Walter did not look up. "Because everything has to touch it," he said. Eleanor set his tea down and let it be. The years after that were quiet, but Walter was not idle. He watched. He watched survey flags appear in fields 3 miles south in 1984. He watched fresh tire tracks cut into raw dirt where there had been no road. He watched trucks come and go on land that used to grow corn. He kept it all in the notebook Eleanor had given him one Christmas, a plain green one, nothing special. He wrote down dates. He wrote down which fields sold and which sat. He wrote down names. The names were strange at first, not people. Companies, Cascade North LLC, Ridgeline Holdings, Meridian Land Group. Walter did not know much about companies, but he knew a pattern when he saw one. The same address kept showing up on the paperwork at the county office. The same 3 companies kept buying. 40 acres here, 80 there, 120 the next year. Somebody was quietly buying up the whole North County, one farm at a time, hiding behind different names so no single sale looked big. By the time Walter finished his count, the companies had assembled 280 acres. 280 acres of land for something big. A development. Houses, stores, roads, the works, and not one of those 280 acres could reach a public highway without crossing the old protected corridor, which could only be reached through Walter's 12 feet. He sat with the notebook open and the hand-drawn map beside it. He looked from one to the other, the big shape of all that assembled land, the thin dark line of his strip holding the only door, 280 acres, and it all hung on 12 feet. Walter closed the notebook. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He set the map on top of the notebook, squared the edges with his thumbs, and turned off the kitchen light. The trap did not need him to do anything now. It just needed him to wait. A black car pulled into the gravel drive on a Tuesday, and a young man in a pressed shirt got out holding a clipboard and a smile that cost more than the car. Walter watched him from the porch. He set his coffee cup down on the rail before the man reached the steps. "Mr. Hargrove, beautiful morning. My name's Cody. I represent some buyers interested in your north parcel." "Which parcel?" Walter said. He knew which. The strip, 12-footer along the old easement." Cody laughed a little, like it was a funny thing to want. "We're prepared to offer you $9,000, cash. Today, $9,000 for land that cost $47. Most men would have signed before the pen cooled." "No," Walter said. "Thank you." Cody blinked. He talked about market value. He talked about how the land just sat there. He left a card on the rail next to the coffee cup. Walter let it sit there in the wind. That spring, he paid the tax bill the day it came, same as always, $6 and change. He mowed the strip in May and again in September. He walked the line and reset a corner marker a deer had knocked loose. Eleanor watched him come back up the drive with the mower gas can. "They'll come back higher," she said. "They will," Walter said. They did. The second call came 8 months later, and it was not a young man in a pressed shirt. It was the county. A man from the planning office, voice smooth and sure, mister. Hargrove, we're looking at some right-of-way cleanup in the North District. The county would be glad to take that little strip off your hands. We can do $31,000 and handle all the paperwork. $31,000. From the county itself. Walter held the phone and looked out the window at nothing. That's a kind offer, he said. But no. The man's voice tightened. He used words like simplify and avoid complications. Walter thanked him again and hung up the receiver soft. He understood now that the county was not asking for itself. Somebody had asked the county to ask. The pressure was moving up the chain. Their daughter Susan called that Sunday like she always did. She was grown now, a lawyer down in the city, sharp as a tack. When she was 12, she had ridden out to the strip with him in the truck and asked why he cared about a road that wasn't there. Walter had told her, a road that isn't there yet is still a road. She had written it down in her own little notebook. He never forgot that she wrote it down. He did not mention the offers to her. Not yet. The third offer came in person a year after that. A long car this time. A man in a three-piece suit with a leather briefcase that clicked when it opened. He asked to come in. Walter let him. Eleanor poured coffee at the kitchen table because that is what you do, even for a man like this. Mr. Hargrove, I'm counsel for the development group. He set a single page on the table. I'll be direct. We're offering $200,000 for the strip. It's far above any reasonable value. Frankly, it's a gift. $200,000 for 12 feet of grass. Eleanor did not move. Walter looked at the number for a moment. Then he slid the page back across the table. No, he said. The lawyer's smile cracked at one corner. He explained slowly that the offer would not stand forever, that there were other ways, that a man should be reasonable. I am being reasonable, Walter said. The answer's no. The lawyer packed his briefcase. It clicked shut hard. 60 miles south, in a glass office above the city, Dennis Royce threw a folder across a conference table. 200 grand and he won't sell a ditch? Find another route. There has to be another route. There was no other route. His own agent told him so twice. He just did not want to hear it. Then make him sell, Royce said, and walked out. Back at the farmhouse, the offers stopped for a while. Walter kept mowing, kept paying the $6 every spring, kept the markers clear. He had said no to $9,000, no to $31,000, no to $200,000. Each no came easier than the last. Eleanor asked him one night, drying a plate, "What are you waiting for, Walter?" "For them to need it more than I do," he said. 3 years passed that way. The development sat half-finished, 280 acres of graded dirt with no legal way out, bleeding money every month it could not open. Then, on a quiet morning in spring, the phone rang. Walter was at the table with his coffee. The screen showed a number he did not know. He looked at it ring once. Twice he set the cup down and reached for the phone. "Mr. Hargrove, before you say anything, we'd like to offer $400,000, and I really think you'll want to hear the terms." Walter held the phone to his ear and said nothing for a moment. Eleanor looked up from the stove. "Send your papers," Walter said. "I'll have someone look." He hung up before the lawyer finished his next sentence. Then he called Susan. She drove down that weekend. She came through the door with her bag already open, the lawyer and her stepping out before the daughter could even sit. Walter laid it all on the kitchen table for her, the original deed, the folded receipt from 1971, soft as cloth now, the green notebook, the old corridor file she had photocopied from the county that Friday on her way out of the city. Susan spread the permit file beside the deed and read in silence. 10 minutes. 15. The kettle ticked on the stove. She tapped the 1931 corridor record. Then the development's own permit map. Her finger traced the only legal connection from 280 acres to a public road. It ran through 12 feet of her father's land. "Dad," she said quietly, "they can't open a single house without this strip." "I know," Walter said. "They've known for years. I know that too." She looked at him a long moment. Then she picked up the phone and called the development's lawyer back herself. She did not raise her voice. She told him her father would not be selling. The lawyer's tone climbed fast. He said the company would challenge the deed. He said the land had been abandoned. He said a strip mowed twice a year and never developed was not really owned at all. "We'll see you at the hearing," Susan said, and hung up gently. The challenge came 3 weeks later in a small county hearing room with folding chairs and a tired judge. The development's lawyer spread out his argument like a man who had already won. He called the strip abandoned. He called the deed a technicality. He said no reasonable person treats $47 of weeds as real property for 50 years. He talked for 20 minutes. Susan stood up and placed 3 documents on the table. The first was the original 1931 corridor filing, never dissolved. The second was the recorded deed, signed by Walter, dated 1971. The third was a stack of tax receipts, 55 of them. One for every single year, paid in full, on time by Walter Hargrove. "You cannot abandon land," Susan said. "That the county itself taxed you for every year, and that you paid every year. The county's own records prove it was never abandoned. They prove it was kept. The room was quiet. The judge looked at the 3 documents for less than a minute. The deed stands, he said. Claim dismissed. The development's lawyer did not argue. He reached for his phone before he even sat down. That was the moment Dennis Royce ran out of room. What came after was not a fight. It was arithmetic. Susan handled it across the kitchen table over 2 weeks. Royce's people offered a lump sum, $600,000, then 8, a single check to make it all go away. Walter said no to the check. Not a sale, he told Susan. Terms. So she wrote terms. A permanent easement across the strip. The development could build their road. In return, they would pay the Hargrove family a fixed amount every month for as long as the road carried a single car, adjusted upward with inflation every year, and passed down to Susan and her children after. Royce's lawyer pushed back once on the inflation clause. Susan held. He pushed back on the inheritance clause. She held again. Then he signed all of it. $8,000 a month, every month, rising every year, forever. For 12 feet of grass that cost $47. Susan called the farmhouse with the news. Walter answered on the second ring. It's done, Dad. All of it. Good work, kiddo, Walter said. Eleanor did not ask what the number was. She had trusted him for 55 years without asking why. She simply crossed the kitchen and put the kettle on. The signing happened at the county clerk's office the following Thursday. Walter wore a clean shirt. He pressed his thumb to the page and signed his name slow, the same way he had signed it in 1971 in the same county building at a different folding table. Then he walked out to his truck. He sat behind the wheel and took the green notebook from the glove box. He turned past 50 years of dates and names to the first empty page. He uncapped a pencil. He wrote one line, patients paid, $47 to $8,000 a month. He closed the notebook and drove home. 60 miles south, Dennis Royce read about the agreement in the back pages of the county paper. One paragraph. No quote from him. No comment. Just silence from a glass office above the city. At the feed store, one of the old men who had stood around that folding table in 1971 heard the news and shook his head. $47, he said, and we all laughed. Some men chased the big deal and grabbed the first check they're handed. Walter Hargrove turned down the check and the land paid him for the rest of his life. So tell me, would you have taken the $400,000 and walked away, or waited it out like Walter and held the line for the monthly deal? Drop your answer below and stick around. The next story will surprise you just as much.